In the city of Tera, there lived a well-respected pastor named Uzo, known for his supposed miraculous healing powers. The people adored him, believing God's power flowed through him. However, Uzo was no true man of God. His greed had led him to sell his soul to the devil for power. Raised in a devout Christian home, Uzo's father was a pastor and his mother a deaconess. As their only child, Uzo was immersed in church life, leading the youth group and preaching the gospel from a young age. His sermons were loved, earning him the nickname, the young preacher. At 18, Uzo decided to follow in his father's footsteps and become a pastor. His father, Mr. Matthew, was proud of his son's decision. By the age of 22, Uzo felt called to start his own church, and after receiving his father's blessing, he moved to Tera, a bustling city. He arrived late one night, unable to find a place to stay. Fortunately, Frank, a local cab driver, took him in. The two quickly became close friends. That night, Uzo asked Frank why all the hotels were full. Frank explained that Tera hosted an annual church program by the renowned pastor Uche, famous for his miracles, healings, and prophecies. People flocked from all over to attend. The next day, Frank showed Uzo around the city. Uzo rented a small hall, bought chairs, and began his ministry. Despite his dedication, only a handful of people attended his church, while most people in Tera were drawn to the promise of miracles and prophecies. A month later, Uzo's church was still small, with only a few faithful members, including Frank. One day, while walking through the city, Uzo witnessed a luxurious car stop outside a mall. A young man stepped out, and Uzo overheard two men discussing Pastor Uche's wealth and success. They spoke of his large congregation, luxurious gifts, and millionaire status. Intrigued, Uzo learned that Pastor Uche, who had only been in Tera for 2 years, had already built a massive church and gained great wealth from his devoted followers. The following Sunday, after counting the meager offerings at his church, Uzo couldn't shake the envy and greed sparked by what he had learned about Pastor Uche. The thought of his own struggles compared to Uche's success consumed him, leading him down a dangerous path. The next day, Pastor Uzo visited Pastor Uche's church and was stunned by the sheer number of members. What shocked him further was Pastor Uche's brief 30-minute sermon, focused solely on wealth and prosperity, not salvation. I preach for hours and get nothing, but he speaks for just 30 minutes and makes millions. I need to do something to get members too, Uzo thought. As he walked home, he couldn't stop thinking about the offering of 1 million naira and the joyful congregation. His envy and greed grew, and by the following Sunday, after counting the offerings, he shared his frustration with Frank. I'm a good preacher, but why am I not getting the same success as Pastor Uche? Frank, understanding Uzo's feelings, replied, Pastor Uche's congregation is drawn to his miracles, healing, and prophecies, not salvation. You're not spiritually strong enough for that, and it takes God's grace. Then Frank whispered, I know someone who can help, Baba Ijibu, a man with deep knowledge of the spiritual realm. He has the answers you seek. Uzo hesitated. You want me to meet the devil for powers? Haven't you listened to my sermons? Frank reassured him. Baba Ijibu isn't evil. He's just a gifted man with knowledge on spirituality. He can help you. Reluctantly, Uzo agreed. A few days later, Baba Ijibu visited Uzo's church and shared the dark secrets behind some miracles. He offered Uzo 2 powerful items, one that could make people loyal to him forever, and another that would grant him visions, prophecies, and the ability to perform temporary miracles. However, he warned that these miracles were short-lived, and healing would only worsen over time. Baba Ijibu told Uzo that to obtain these powers, he needed to join the Lulu deity's spiritual ranks, starting at rank 1 under Master Lulu. Uzo was shocked and could hardly believe what he was hearing. Pastor Uzo and Frank stood still, awestruck, as the cold wind from the portal rushed toward them. The dark space beyond the portal was unsettling, with twisted trees and eerie sounds. Despite the fear, Baba Ijibu remained calm, signaling for them to move forward. "Don't be afraid," Baba Ijibu said. "This is the path to power, to the strength you seek." Pastor Uzo glanced at Frank, who shared his fear but also had a sense of curiosity. Baba Ijibu led the way through the portal, and they followed, each step feeling heavier. As they entered the dark forest, the cold grew sharper, and an eerie silence surrounded them. The trees seemed to close in on them. Frank asked nervously, "Where are we going?" "To meet the guardian," Baba Ijibu answered. "The one who controls the power you want." The journey was disorienting, and the air felt thick with darkness. Baba Ijibu walked confidently, as though he had done this many times before. After what felt like hours, they reached a clearing with a stone altar surrounded by glowing symbols. At the center was a shadowy figure, indistinct and imposing. Baba Ijibu bowed slightly. "Master Lulu," Baba Ijibu called. "These are the ones seeking your guidance. They are ready." The figure stirred, and the air crackled with energy. Slowly, it took shape, a tall and powerful being with glowing eyes. Its presence was both terrifying and magnetic. "Welcome," the being said in a deep voice. "I am Lulu, the guardian. You've come seeking power. Do you understand the cost?" Pastor Uzo, his heart racing, stepped forward. "Yes, I want to be a powerful man of God. I want to heal the sick, perform miracles, and lead my people. I want to be like Pastor Uche." Lulu studied him intently. "To have true power, you must follow your own path. Your heart must be pure. Miracles come with responsibility. Are you willing to pay the price?" Pastor Uzo hesitated. Frank spoke up, asking, "What's the cost?" "The cost is not just the power," Lulu replied. "Every miracle has a price. Your choices will shape the future. But once you step into this realm, there's no turning back." Pastor Uzo, despite his fear, was determined. "I'm ready," he said firmly. "Give me the power." Lulu nodded. "You will receive what you seek, but power without wisdom will destroy you. The path is dangerous, and not everyone survives." With a wave, Lulu summoned a dark mist that enveloped them, filling them with energy and knowledge. For a moment, Pastor Uzo felt like he was floating, but the sensation quickly faded, leaving a heavy darkness behind. "You are now bound to this realm," Lulu's voice echoed in their minds. "Use your powers wisely, for the consequences will follow you." The portal to the human world reopened, and Baba Ijibu motioned for them to return. As they walked back through the forest, Pastor Uzo felt the weight of his decision. The power was now his, but something felt wrong. When they returned to the church, the door closed behind them with a heavy thud. Pastor Uzo stood there, feeling different, stronger, but also burdened. The power he had gained was undeniable, but he couldn't shake the thought. Had he made a deal with the devil? And if so, what would be the true cost? Pastor Uzo, following the master's instructions, applied the substance to his lips and began preaching with new energy. The people who had once ignored him now stopped to listen and entered his church. His sermons, which used to feel empty, now resonated with the growing crowd, and they started praising him as a great man of God. For the first time in months, Uzo felt hopeful as his church filled with new members eager to see the miracles he promised. But this success came with a price. Over time, the members of his church became more and more focused on him. They followed his every word without question, and their once independent thoughts seemed to vanish. Frank, who had always supported Uzo, started to notice how strange the changes in the congregation were. What had seemed like a blessing now felt like a curse. Despite Frank's concerns, Pastor Uzo, caught up in his growing power, refused to see the truth. The church kept growing, and Uzo felt more in control. One day, as he stood at the pulpit, he remembered Baba Ijibu's warning: "You will become great, but there is no going back once you enter this realm." Doubts began to creep into Uzo's mind, but it was too late. He couldn't let go of the power he had gained, even as he saw the darkness taking over. Pastor Uzo's ambition had tied his soul to the will of Lulu's guardian. Every time he used his power, he felt more of his humanity slipping away. His church continued to grow, but at what cost? The power he had longed for was now slowly taking away everything he had, and there was no way to go back. While preaching on the streets, Pastor Uzo saw a blind man singing and begging for alms. Uzo prayed for him, and miraculously, the man regained his sight. The crowd was amazed, and the man explained he had been blind from birth. This miracle sparked curiosity, and many people asked about Uzo's church. His congregation grew so large that his church couldn't fit everyone, forcing him to move to a bigger hall. As Uzo's popularity grew, he continued performing miracles with the powers granted by the grandmasters. At the end of the month, he went to meet Master Lulu. To his surprise, influential leaders from various fields, pastors, politicians, and entrepreneurs were also there. During the meeting, Lulu told Uzo that in exchange for his powers, he would need to offer a monthly blood sacrifice from his congregation, chosen at random. Uzo laughed it off and agreed. His ministry flourished, and Uzo became wealthy, driving expensive cars with security around him. He eventually married Ephora, a beautiful choir leader from his church. After a lavish wedding, everything seemed perfect. 6 months later, Grace, a devoted Christian, joined Uzo's church. She admired his spiritual gifts and believed him to be a genuine man of God. Unbeknownst to her, Uzo's powers came from dark forces. Grace was appointed as a deaconess, and during a ritual with Lulu, she was chosen to be the next sacrifice. Soon after, Grace began to experience mysterious health problems. Doctors couldn't find a cause, but her condition worsened. Will Grace survive? Will she become the next sacrifice? Stay tuned for the next episodes to find out. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share if you enjoyed the story.